I'm Steve Brunwasser, and with my help from Timbrook, or with help from my friend Michael Timbrook, we are going to show you everything that you're going to need to know to start working on iOS apps. It'll be great. Let's dive in. So, like I said, I assume you know Objective-C. I gave a presentation earlier on Objective-C. It's on the internet. Go see it. It's great. Cool. You will learn what exactly? How to use Xcode, the IDE for iOS development and Mac development. You'll learn how to make a Hello World app for iOS. Actually, three actually, right?
Yeah, we have 3 apps, 2 demos and one just kind of showing you what to do.
3 Hello World apps. That is 2 more than you're normally used to in languages, I bet. We'll show you how to make a basic flashlight app. It sounds simple, but it shows you some really important things about the iOS frameworks. And we'll show you one last special super secret app. It'll be awesome. And we'll give you some demos so that you can follow along if you so desire. To follow along, you have to have Xcode installed. I would recommend the latest because if you don't have anything, you'd already get the latest. Make sure everything's always up to date. You can download it at the iOS App Store. It's free. On the Mac App Store, sorry. There's no iOS version of Xcode. Okay, so where do we start with Xcode? Creating a project, of course. Here's a simple guide on how to do that. First, you select a template. After you tell Xcode that you want to make a project, you then say, okay, I want to have an iOS application, and we're going to use single view applications. There are other kinds of applications you can have. There's this tab application over here. There's empty application if you really want to go hardcore, but I like starting all my apps with a single view. It's just nice, easy setup from the beginning. And yeah, here we have single view applications, tabbed applications, page-based applications. They're all kind of things that Xcode has already set up for you, but you can all get them through the single view application. It was right there. Why did I have to switch to the other slide? You can all get those to the single view application. You can technically even do it from the empty project, but I like the single page application personally. Single view, sorry. Oh, I went the wrong direction. Oh, no, wait, it did. Project options? Oh, bad image. Okay, so once you click on that, you will get, and once you click next on this view, you'll go to another screen that will ask you for project options. They will be things like what you want to call your project, your company identifier, which is a reverse domain URL. In our examples, we used edu.se.sse as our reverse domain. Oh, edu.rit.se.sse. Right. That's what we chose. You don't have to have anything. Xcode's not going to check, oh, do you belong to this organization? Does this even exist as a legitimate domain? It's just something that, it's a nice formality. There's also going to be a checkboxes for things like, do you want to use automatic reference counting?
Yes.
Like, yes. Do you want to use Storyboard? I highly recommend you select yes, even if you feel like you want to do all programming stuff. We can still show you how to do it with Storyboard, and it makes it a lot easier for you. There's even going to be something that says, do you want to use core data? Now, we don't cover core data in this presentation, and I don't know if we will in the next one.
We'll touch it a little bit.
We might touch up on it a little bit. But it's useful, and it's best when you have Xcode pre-generate files for you. It's recommended that if you accidentally start a project and you decide you want core data, that you make a new project that has core data and copy things over, because it's easier. Xcode does a lot of stuff to set that up for you and make it nice and easy. Okay, then you save your project. This is the easier slide. I wish we had the other slide instead. But what you do is you create, you have this little checkbox down here to create a local Git repo. And I check that. It's nice. It's nice to be able to say, Xcode, I want you to commit all these files. You can still go into the folder that your project is located in and manually use the Git repo. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. In fact, if you want, you can totally do that, and I would recommend it. Xcode has tools for Git, but they're not the best tools in the world. There's Nothing really beats the command line utility. But they're not the worst tools in the world. They're actually pretty good, and I would recommend using them for nice basic stuff, even if you're a beginner at Git. It's really nice to have revision control built. Okay, now you have a project. After you click Save, it's all set up, and if you press the Run button, it will give you an empty iOS app. Awesome, but you don't want to just have an empty iOS app. That's not the end of the world. I mean, that's not the end of your project. You want to do more. So we're going to show you what you get with your default project so that you can add more onto it later. Make your own app. The first thing that you'll see is this target information. This is a whole bunch of information that Xcode automatically sets up for you. You could technically do this in code, but it's a lot nicer to do it in Xcode for you. Here are like buttons to let Xcode know what kind of portraits, what kind of rotations you're going to support. This is how your status bar is going to be viewed in the app. App icons, there's launch images down here. The target devices up here that you're going to support.
Actually, farther down on summary, if you scroll down, you can add frameworks that come with Xcode. So if you want to add the core data, the core audio, the core video, that's where you go down and you add all those frameworks.
There's another place you can add frameworks as well. And we actually show that one. This is the one where you say, this is the storyboard that you're going to start my program with. What is storyboard? I'll tell you later, don't worry. Version, target deployment version, all the good stuff that sets up your compiler, it sets up everything really, and it's really nice to have. Over here in the build phases tab, the target information was in summary or info? It was in summary. Build phases is where you can select the compile sources. If you manually add your own file and Xcode didn't include it in the target for you, the target is what your app is called. If it didn't include it in the target for you, you manually include it here to make sure it compiles in your code. Otherwise, it's not going to. And then you're going to be all sad because your file is not in your code and you don't have the functionality you want. Over here is the binaries, and libraries that you're telling Xcode you want to compile with. So here we have the UIKit framework, which is the swing of iOS, except better. The foundation framework, which is all the basic stuff of Objective-C. And the core graphics framework, which is everything that it uses to display things. Down here we have copy bundle resources is what it's called. It's stuff that Xcode is going to copy for you from your projects directory into your application bundle, the app itself, so that your app can reference it. This is where you put images or text files, or I guess if you're using OpenGL, your OpenGL shader files. Unless that's included somewhere else, I wouldn't really know. Sorry.
But if you add files to your project, they're automatically added into your resources. But if for whatever reason it's not in there, or you need to remove something that's still in there even if you deleted it, you can remove its referenced in code here.
Notice that in here we already have our main storyboard imported, so we don't have to worry about manually editing that. We also have over here, these are the default launch images that will, it's just a black screen, but this is what will appear on the iOS device while our application is loading into memory. And that's the build phases.
You can also add compiler flags to your sources.
Oh yeah.
If you need that, the only time I've ever used that is if I'm using a framework that doesn't use automatic reference counting. You can put the flag on there to tell the compiler not to use that.
Okay. Here's storyboard. Over here in this file, if you look carefully, the project is highlighted over here to see our target information and build phases. And over here, our storyboard, main storyboard.storyboard file is highlighted over here. And this is Storyboard. It is the latest incarnation of Interface Builder, which is the tool that dates back all the way back to Next Step operating system for creating graphical user interfaces with click and drag stuff. It is the only way to do click and drag interface creation. It is nice, it is great. You're going to never want to code stuff that's static using Storyboard and using Interface Builder. This over here is the view I mean, this is not the view. It's a little bit more, and I'll get into what it is exactly later. But you can think of it as the view of the first screen of your app. Over here are the things that you can click, drag onto it, other kinds of windows that you can have in addition to your window or replace your main window with. UI buttons, UI image views, all that good stuff that you might want to have put on your app either statically or as a placeholder for something that will be added there dynamically later. And over here is the attributes view. I think it's called the attributes view. It's that little icon thing.
Yeah,
I recognize the icons, not the names.
It's like a slider bar, like pointing down.
This is, right now we have the entire view. It's not a view. I'll tell you what it is later. We have the entire view highlighted, so we're getting all the attributes for that view. And you can modify the attributes later. If we're not selecting view, if we're clicking on the actual view, which is actually in this blue box, you'll get the actual view's properties. If we click on a UI button, you get things like, oh, what do you want the text to be? Do you want it to have rounded corners, a custom image that you might want to have in there? These are all the nice settings you can have. There's this ruler over there, which is the measurements and dimensions, and how it's going to react with different view sizes. Now, with the advent of the iPhone 5, and we even have the iPad, where there are now different screen sizes for iOS, they have, do you remember what it's called? I forget what it's called.
Constraints.
UI constraints, which allow it to dynamically figure out the positioning of everything relative to other elements on the screen. There's a lot more functionality in code that you can do than you can do just in Storyboard, but you can do both. So I recommend using what you have in Storyboard until you can't do stuff. We'll cover more details about that in tomorrow's presentation. But that's what a storyboard is. Later on you'll understand why it's called a storyboard. This is called your application delegate file. It's another file over here. This is the implementation file we have. It's not really important right now what exactly is in here, which is why we opted to keep everything small and unreadable. But pretty much this is where your app is started, where your app is told it's going to stop, where your app is told you're going to go to the background, so you might want to slow down or close some processes and stuff. This is pretty much where iOS is going to talk to your app. You don't necessarily need to put anything in here, depending on your app. We're not going to touch this anywhere in our presentation, right? I don't know about yours.
No.
Okay. We're not going to touch this anywhere in our presentation. So we just wanted to let you know that it exists. This is a view controller. Now, when I said that there was a view before, but it wasn't quite a view, this is what I was talking about. It has a view in it, but it controls the view, all the data that's put on the view, how the view is going to react to everything. And it's actually a really useful tool, and this is where the meat of your app is going to be. And you can have multiple view controllers for different views, and for different screens in iOS. And we'll get into how you'll use that later, but this is what exists right now. Okay, hello world, your first iOS app. We're going to show you how to do it, starting with Storyboard, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh wait, well, we're going to show you 3 ways on how to do it. The first one is using pure Storyboard. There will be no code in the first demonstration at all. It will be using the power of your beloved mouse. The second demonstration will be using dynamic programming in addition to Storyboard, what Storyboard gives you. You will be using your keyboard. If you love dynamic programming, this is for you. And in the final demonstration, we'll be using both Storyboard and dynamic programming to show you how it's a good idea to have your Storyboard there. It gives you a lot of stuff that you might like. And there's no shame in doing both. You can have your dynamic programming there all you want with your static Storyboard view. Using Storyboard. So this is the main view for Storyboard. You have your view controller here, which is all selected in blue. You have your view inside your view controller, and you have this little arrow that says, this is the first view of the Storyboard. When the app loads this view controller with this view.
You can also see over here, you can see the hierarchy of your layout. So as you add things to here, they'll line up in there. And you can drag them up and down to bring them to the front and back. And you can also nest them inside of other elements.
If you don't want to look at this view and you prefer to click elements directly, you can press this button over here to hide it. This can be useful for screen real estate. A lot of times I personally ended up having Xcode full screened, and even that isn't enough space. This can take up a lot of room. So you might want to hide that. But you don't always have to, and you can unhide it. There's an unhide button. The default view in Storyboard right now with iOS 6 and the iPhone 5 is the 4-inch screen.
Yes,
yeah, it's the 4-inch screen for the iPhone 5. If you'd rather develop for the older generations of the iPhone with the 3.5-inch screen, you can press this button over here to toggle the view. Now, you don't have to use your Storyboard for exclusively one or the other. You can actually do both at the same time. That doesn't do anything to your Storyboard representation. It just changes the view, so you can see how your constraints elements behave on the different devices. Dragging a UI label to the view. We're going to show you a video now where you click and drag the label from the label area, from the objects area over here. You drag it onto the view, and you double click it so that you can start editing the text. We wrote "Hello World" there. And we clicked away to deselect everything.
Voila, we have Hello World.
Hello World. That's the entire code for your...
It's not even code, it's just drag.
For your Hello World program in Storyboard. Here we go. Hello World. Isn't it beautiful? Wait, there's a little bit something off there, isn't there?
Yeah, this is on the iPhone 4, so it has the 3.5-inch screen. And before we had our Hello World centered on our 4-inch screen. You can see now it's kind of pushed down from the top. That's because we didn't set up any constraints on it yet.
We just put the static dimensions in there, and it did not account for the smaller screen. But this is how you change that. It's a nice, awesome video. It'll start anytime. You select the thing that you want to
label there.
Adjust the view for. You go into Editor, Align, and then we want to center it in vertically. So you click vertically align to center. And then you click away and it's done. And over here we're clicking this button to change the view between both the iPhone 5 and the iPhone 4S views. And there you have it. Here's our nice new Hello World that is centered on the iPhone 4S. The 3.5-inch screen. Huzzah! Now we're going to show you how to do that same thing in code. It's awesome. So first you start with your view controller over here. You have two methods in your view controller. There are a whole lot more that you get inherited from UI view controller. But these two are the ones that Xcode deems are important for the auto-generated file.
And the names are pretty self-explanatory. View did load. When your view loads, this block gets called. And any code you have in there runs. And from there you can call other things in your application.
To set up the view, like this is where you would assign values to all the labels that you have in your view, all the pictures that you might have on there, change the background color, set up the view for when the view actually does stuff later. Did receive memory warning. We don't need to touch in this presentation. And you don't have to either. You can just leave it there. It's great. Okay, so we're going to make a new UILabel element. We call it myLabel. We call alloc and init on it to initialize it. Great, simple. Do you want to?
Using .syntax, myLabel, the UILabel, has an attribute called text. And here we're using the object literal for a string, and we're setting that text to hello world.
Simple enough, right? Cool. Over here we have myLabel.text alignment. We're setting the alignment of the text to the constant enum value ns text alignment center. NS standing for the next step namespace. Normally you'll have UI instead of NS when dealing with iOS stuff, but every once in a while a little NS pops up in there and you just have to live with it. Okay. Over here we have myLabel.center. Here we're adjusting where the center of our label is located.
So here we're positioning it, we're setting where the center is, but we're actually, on our view controller, we're accessing the view that it's associated with, then we're accessing its point center. These are CG points. CG stands for core graphics. And this is basically an XY float. So it's an object where you have a .x and a .y you can access.
It's not an object, it's a struct.
Okay, it's a struct.
Struct instance.
And then so you're just setting that to the center, so this will always be at your view's center.
And over here we call on the view property of self the method add subview, which adds a subview. Very basic, very simple. And the subview that we add is MyLabel. Every resource that you would add onto a view is a subclass of UIView. So you can just call the add subview method to add it. And there we go. We have our Hello World app programmed in code, and it's all centered. Because we used code, we didn't have to use the UI constraints because we just grabbed the center from the view.
We also didn't copy this photo from earlier. It is a brand new photo, actually run with this code.
Promise. Now using both. First you're going to add a UI label to the storyboard view.
So same as before, you can just drag the label onto the view. And now, instead of editing it this time, we're actually, do I do it in this one?
No, it's not.
Okay. So
We
just
just
dragging
leave
the
it
label onto the view and not doing anything with it there.
It's unimportant what it says. You're going to override its value limit. Now you can
So-
add a UI button to the story view. We haven't done buttons yet, but here we're going to. This is going to be where the dynamic portion of our app comes in play. You add the button just like you add a label. But we're doing something extra. We're going to attach our button to code, and Xcode will generate the code to attach it for us. All we do is control-click or right-click and drag from the button over to the header file for our view controller. And here we select that we want an action, so whenever the button is pressed, touch up inside pressed, it will call this method that we just created, that Xcode created for us, called myButtonPressed. It takes the first parameter as a type ID sender. Now, Interface Builder Storyboard will send us the button instance as the sender, because the button is sending the message.
And also what we did here, we did the same thing with the UI label and called it myLabel, and that created a property of type UI label called myLabel that we can access in our implementation.
For the button, we had clicked and dragged it and selected action. But for the label, when we clicked and dragged it, we selected outlet. It's the outlet to access the label. The outlet is prefixed with the variable modifier IB outlet that just says Interface Builder outlet. That is not for you, that's for Xcode and Interface Builder to generate everything for you. Over here, our action that we told the button to call returns a type IB action. That is also not for you, that's just for Interface Builder. It's akin to void, so you don't really have to return anything at all. Okay, cool.
Oh, so this was actually adding the label.
Adding the label. These slides are out of order, people. Oh no. I did this
Okay,
wrong.
so we do the same thing. We just right click and drag into our header file, and here we have an outlet, and we just called it myLabel.
Over here, we're making the arc modifier weak. That's what you generally do with things that you don't really care if they go away, and you don't really want to keep as long as you exist. Xcode and Storyboard might decide that the label that's actually on there lasts less than the view controller itself. This is something that normally happens for memory management. When you switch view controllers, your view controller stays there, but the view goes away, and things that are with the view go away. And then when you switch back to the view controller, the state that you had for your code programmatically stays there, and then it reloads and regenerates a view for you, and recalls view did load.
Which is another method that you can implement in your view controller.
Well, that's the method that we showed them earlier.
Oh.
For the button.
There's also like view will load.
Over here, we're editing the code to add functionality. Within our myButtonPressed, we are adding code to toggle between what the label is going to say. So every time the button's pressed, it's going to change the value of the text in the label.
Also, ignore the color scheme change. You can just change what color scheme you use in preferences. I prefer to use dust. It's a little darker and easier on the eyes.
Okay, over here we're setting the text in the myLabel property to I'm pressed. So when we press, oh wait, what? Oh, I guess we don't have
We don't have a video of us.
That is weird.
We had one, you sent it in.
Okay,
We forgot
well,
to.
what will happen is, I guarantee this works, the view will load and there'll be a button and the default text with hello world. Over here in the view did load, we set the text to hello world. When you press the button, this method is going to be called by interface builder, by the button itself, and it will change, this method changes the text in the label to I'm pressed. So when you press the button, the text changes from hello world to I'm pressed. It's great.
Okay.
Now,
So now this will be our first demo for shedding some light on the flashlight app. Okay, so your basic flashlight app, we'll get to that in a second. Your basic flashlight app, not even using the phone's flash, but basically putting a white screen on a view controller and being able to change the colors of it. Turn your brightness up all the way. We've all done it. We use our phones to get around in the dark. It's as simple as a flashlight app as you can get. So what we're going to use to do this is we're going to use this thing called segues. Segues in Interface Builder, or something you implement in Interface Builder, is a way to switch between different view controllers. So here I have a button, red, you press it, it brings up, using a segue, another view controller that has a red background. And then when you click on that view controller, which is just a big button on here, that sends a segue back to the original view controller you were on. So it's an easy way for switching between applications, or view controllers within your application. So how does this work? We'll start by creating a segue interface builder. So we have an example here. So I'm creating a segue between two view controllers. So what you do is you right-click and drag from the view controller to your other view controller. And this is going to run.
try tapping the screen, see what happens. Nothing. Okay.
Okay, so same as before when we were adding things like our header file. You can also right-click or control-click and drag between different elements in Interface Builder. So here I have the view controller selected, and I'm going to right-click and drag over to this view controller. Oh, there it goes. This way. So dragging between the view controllers, and I'm doing a modal segue. If I go over, go to the attributes over here. I'm giving it an identifier. This is how we're actually going to access it in code later. So you create a segue between the two, and you basically give it a name.
Just to let you know, real quick, when you want to create a segue between two view controllers, you have to either click on this bar over here and drag from the bar over to anywhere on this view controller, or click from the status bar up there.
Yeah, because you want to make sure you're going from the view controller to the view controller. As I'll show later, you can actually go from elements to other elements or view controllers. You actually can go straight from a button to another view controller, and automatically you'll click on that button and you'll go to that other view controller. So, how to do this in code? UI view controller has built-in methods for using segues in Interface Builder. So you have this method here, perform segue with identifier. This is the string that we named our segue with. So you don't actually call it, you don't implement this method, you call it like this. So you call on yourself, perform segue with identifier, whatever you named your segue, and you have this thing called sender. Basically you can send anything to your view controller that you're segueing to.
Just to let you know, the full name of that method is actually perform segue with identifier sender.
I just put the full method declarations in, so you can see what type it's taking.
That's the full name. That's just how you pronounce it.
So, and then you can actually implement this method in your view controller. So you just copy and paste this in your view controller, throw curly brackets after it. Prepare for segue, sender. You can actually, when this method gets called, this method will get called, and then you can check your sender and actually modify the attributes of the view controller you're switching to, which I'll show you how to do in code later. So, how does this make a flashlight? Well, we're going to do a demo, and we're going to make this application here. So, you can make all these different colors come up on the screen, and I'll loop through. So, on to the demo.
Do you need help with the screens and everything?
Yeah, what button am I pressing?
Okay, I got it.
Oh, nice. Alright, so we'll start by opening Xcode. And I'll get my code ready over here. Okay. And let's go through the full license agreement for Xcode, apparently.
Oh, we're the first to open it.
Yep. So you guys will have a similar experience, opening Xcode for the first time. So we're going to create a new Xcode project. Make a single view application. And here's that option screen that we didn't get to see earlier. We can make our product name. We'll call you Light. We'll be Mentor. You can leave it like that. We're going to make this, when you actually make storyboards, you can make an iPad storyboard and an iPhone storyboard within your same application to actually make a universal application. But we'll just stick with an iPhone for now. And obviously we're going to use storyboards and automatic reference counting. We're not going to write any unit tests, so we don't need to check that. And I do need a company identifier, so just be SSE. And then you can just save this anywhere and create a Git repository. Okay, so here's our target information again, but we'll just jump straight into our storyboard. So, first thing that we're going to want to do is actually make an ad. Is this thing bigger?
Full screen it.
I will duplicate still? Okay, I will. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is actually add another view controller. So down here, you actually have all the different things you can add to your project. And this thing that looks like a cube here, these are actually objects that you can add to Interface Builder. So, first thing here, we're going to drag and add another view controller to our view, well, to our storyboard. So now we have two view controllers. So we're going to connect them like we did before and create a segue. We can give it an identifier. We'll call you my segue again. You can also add different types of transitions. The default is to cover vertical, where the view will actually slide up from the bottom. We can also flip horizontal, cross dissolve. The partial curl will actually take the view controller you're segueing from and just kind of move it up a little bit, and then display the other view controller below it. So that one doesn't give you full access to the other view controller, but like the Maps application, where you can curl like the corner up, it's kind of that idea. So we'll actually do flip horizontal. We'll change it up a little bit. Okay. So a few more things that we need to do in Interface Builder is actually add a button. So there's a nice search bar down at the bottom where we can add a button. And if anyone has any questions or if I'm going too fast, feel free to stop me and ask. So search for a button down in the corner, and came up with my objects. I want a round rectangle button. So I can drag that into my view. And Xcode also has these nice snaps where you can snap elements into recommended positions in your view controller. So we'll put this one in the center. We're going to call you red. And now we're going to add its outlet into our code. So kind of scroll. There we go. So by right-clicking and dragging, we can add an action for it. And we're just going to call this action button pressed. The other three buttons that we're going to make later are all going to call this same method. So touch up inside, button pressed, and we connect that into our code. Alright. So now, that's all quick.
I'm going to pause you real quick. there's this little circle over here next to the action that you just created. That is a little identifier that the circle outside of it means, hey, this is something that that Interface Builder can interact with. The little dot inside, if you scroll down, says there's something connected to it, and it will be used, I promise.
If you actually hover over it, it tells you what it's connected to.
There's a little plus button over there. You can actually click and drag from there to other things. And you can click and drag other things over to this action. You can have many things connect to one action, and you can have only one thing connect to one outlet. An outlet's a variable, but an action's a method. Anyone can call a method.
So, also, this little thing up here in the editor, this center view is a counterpart view. So right now, I just opened up my implementation file, but also right next to it, I have the header file for that file. You can actually specify either manually what file you want to have there, or automatically its counterpart, or superclasses, subclasses, and so on. Xcode is a very nice IDE for...
A counterpart is the opposite of the file that you're currently in. So if you have opened the implementation file, it will have the counterpart be the header. And if you have opened the header, the counterpart is the implementation file.
You can also close out of these side things using View. You can close out of your project navigation or your attributes editor. You can also bring up the console. This will come up automatically when you run your application or you print anything to the console. You can close that out the same way. So let's go back to our single view. My computer keeps locking in here with my code. Alright. So here we have this new method called button press. And in here, we're actually going to just perform our segue. So we call that method self perform segue UI Storyboard segue, which is where I put in.
That's prepare for segue.
That is prepare for segue. Autocompletes can be a little annoying sometimes, but most of the time it's very nice. Yeah, when using Xcode, you do actually very little typing to how much code you actually get. So we call this my segue. I have two senders in here too. Right. And our sender, what we're actually going to send to our prepare for segue method is going to be the text from our button. So you can add tags to your buttons, or there's not really a label for your button.
Buttons have a label.
They have a label. There's a little janky way to get into them.
You can add subviews to your button.
You can, because there's
it's
a view.
It's a UI view.
Mm-hmm. You can do some crazy stuff. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to get the UI button, and then I'm going to get its title, and then I'm going to get the text from the title. So it's kind of taking like a UI label and accessing the text attribute, only it's a little more in-depth. I can actually break this up too. I think I might do that. So I can actually create a UI button, and I can go into my sender. And actually my sender is a UI button.
You don't need to do this step, but this step is nice to have the autocomplete for Xcode, because this tells Xcode, don't worry, I know this is now a UI button, and Xcode will then provide you the autocomplete information for all of UIButton's methods and properties.
The way I have it implemented, there's a lot of casting and a lot of different parentheses, and it's kind of a mess. So you can actually just break it up this way. So now that Xcode knows that my button is a UI button and that the sender is a UI button, we can have our sender be an NS string, but to do that we're just going to send in an NS string because it takes in type ID, so it's automatically casted for you. There's just no casting needed. So my button, which has an attribute, title label, which has a text. So that's pretty simple. That will just pass in whatever button label you have.
Title label is just like every other UI label, except it comes with your button.
Yeah.
All labels have text.
If you actually, if you just put the period after it and then hit escape, you can get a whole list of methods and attributes that you can get for whatever class that you're using. So I have tags, I can get subviews of your button, your tint color, there's all sorts of things. But we just need title label, and then we need the text from that title label, not use commas. Alright, so now that we have our URI button, actually if I run this right now, after I get...
Oh, Mr.
This
Technology,
is another thing that you have to
please
do.
enter the information. You should not have to do this again because...
Well, once you set it up the first time and enable developer mode, everything's good. These are the first few things you have to go through with setting up Xcode on your machine.
We're unfortunately the first people to use Xcode on
Yes.
Mac Mini, so...
Well, not the new Mac Mini, but the fresh install of Mac Mini. Alright. So here's our iOS simulator taking over our entire screen. So
I'm seeing a trend here.
yeah. That's the thing about Macs, they always ask for your password. Alright. So now we have our nice large iPhone up on the screen. It has this button. And you can tell I didn't use any constraints or anything because it's not centered in our view. If you click on this, we'll actually switch to our other view. Well, other view controller. And there's no way of getting back or anything right now. We're not stuck in this view controller forever. But we called the Segue from code and we created an interface builder. So that's the first basic step to making a flashlight app. I can do this. Yes. Okay. So now we actually want to set some attributes of a view controller we're going to, like the view background. So if we actually use the method,
Implement the method.
we'll implement the method, yeah. Void. So it is prepare for Segue. And there it is. So in here, what do we want to do? Alright. I'm going to break this out some more because this is full of some more parentheses. I'm going to make an instance of UI view controller. We'll take the UI view controller we're going to. So this is where we use our Segue, this passed in, and we can take destination view controller. So that's where we're going. And from there, so now that we have an instance of our, see, from here, this message will get called, and once it's completed, the Segue will continue. So now we can do whatever we want on my view controller, like take its view and can actually call set background color. And you can use a UI color here, and we'll use a red color. Because right now all we have is red. So that's all you have to do to actually set attributes to the view controller that you're switching to. So if we run this again, and we click red, now our background's red on our new view controller. And with this, since we're just using the text label from our button, we can turn this into a switch statement. Or switch statements in Objective-C just take ints. They don't work with
Well,
strings.
switch statements in Objective-C are C switch statements.
Yes.
So you can't really use that with NS-string instances unless you mean to compare its pointer value, which you never really want to do ever, under any circumstance ever. So we're just going to use a whole bunch of if-else's.
Yep. So if sender is equal to
String.
string is somewhere in there.
Oh, you have to tell it that sender is an instance of NS-string in order for the Xcode's autocomplete to know that you mean to use an NS-string.
Yes, it's It's not in here.
Right now.
Okay, there it is. It's
Okay.
in there. It's there. So if it's equal to string red in all caps, then we can take this code snippet here, and copy it like this. There you go. I'm trying to use a Windows keyboard on a Mac. So now only if our button says red will it actually change the background color of our UI view controller. So if we just copy this statement, we do this a few times with a few different colors, we can do green, and we can do blue. And then we can change the color of our view controller's background.
Red color, green color,
Black color. Blue color. So, fortunately, we still just have one button in our view controller, but there's a nice shortcut for duplicating objects, and you can actually not control drag, you can command drag, no, alt drag, that's what it is. I can never remember what it is. And actually copy elements, and best part about this is they're all still going to be linked to that same action. And since we were just using the label inside of it, make this green, make this blue. Recenter these on here. We can run our application again. And, oh man, that looks terrible. Let's fix that.
Click green again, real quick. Okay, sorry. I thought a constraint was somehow added.
No. I'm going to add some constraints to it. Let's see. Align, vertical centering container, next to each other. So make a slightly different application. So now if we run this, our buttons won't be piled on top of each other. They'll be next to each other. Click blue, we go in the blue, but oh wait, we still can't get back from this view controller. So one more thing we have to do. So get rid of that there. We're actually going to add a UI button for this controller. And it's going to be one massive button. It takes up the entire background. Here we can actually change some attributes of our button. We're going to make a custom button, and we're going to remove the title. So now it's just a button that's in the background. If we actually drag and make a segue from the button, like I said earlier, drag it to another view controller, you can make a modal view controller straight from a button. And now when you press that button, that segue gets called, and you go back to that other view controller. So now we can actually get out of our flashlight and go back to our main view controller. Click green, we're now green. Click red, it's now red. So there's a simple flashlight application using Interface Builder and a little bit of code and segues. And switch back to
Press both of them. Yep. There you
no, press. Okay, there it is. All right.
go. Okay.
Then
Okay, so
take it away.
I like friends and I like colors, so let's make an app for friends and colors, right? This is our surprise application. We are going to make this app, where it's like a contact book of all of my friends and all of their favorite colors. I'm going to use both Xcode, Xcode Storyboard, and some dynamic programming to get it all done nice and fancy. And in doing so, I'm going to teach you how to use something called UI Navigation Controller, which is this bar up here that provides you with that nice back button.
And
the
know how I am not in there. Even though
We're not
I
friends.
offered to help you with this presentation, I am apparently not one of your friends.
Okay, so what is that consisting of? Like I said, it has a UI navigation view controller. It has a custom UI view controller, performing and preparing for segues, and it has UI labels, buttons, UI images, and UI image views. That's a lot of words. UI navigation view controller is what lets me have that bar at the top and that back button, and lets me have what's called a push transition segue. That was the first one that we avoided clicking and instead clicked modal. The custom UI view controller is a second view controller that we write ourselves, or at least part of it, that is for the second view we have. You already covered performing and preparing for segues, and you are used to UI labels and buttons now, but now we're also going to deal with UI images and UI image views, which are views for viewing images. Okay, so UI navigation view controller provides a stack of view controllers, so you can pile them on as many as you want, and works just like the stack data structure, and you can pop them off. And in fact, I believe the methods for programmatically pushing and popping view controllers onto the stack have push and pop in their name. But I don't remember 100%. They do?
Yeah.
They have push and pop in their name. It's a stack default. Okay, it provides the navigation bar up top, which is an instance of UI navigation item, and it has a back button by default. Every view controller that is connected to the root UI navigation view controller has this navigation item up top, and it has it under the property navigation item. It's not called navigation bar or nav bar or anything. It's a navigation item, so it's called the navigation item property. And UI navigation controller provides the push and the push segue information and animation. Okay, so now I'm going to demo this awesome, amazing app to you, or at least some sort of primitive version of it. Okay. Let me just get everything all set up here. Okay. So, whoops. By the way, if you ever want to do that to test how rotations work, you hold the Apple button and in the iOS simulator, hold the Apple button and the left or the right arrow keys to rotate the simulator. Okay, so we're going to go up to File, New, Project. Open up a new project. It's going to be a single view, because I like those. And we're going to call this Friend Colors. And we're going to make it for the iPhone. Let's put this in the desktop and create a Git repo. Okay, let's start with the view controller. So we have this simple view controller right here, but we want to start out with a UI navigation view controller. So over here in the objects view, we have a little navigation view controller right here. It looks like the back button because that's what it gives you. We can just pop it into Storyboard. And zoom out a bit.
As you can see, Storyboard can be quite annoying on a not high resolution screen.
Okay, so it comes with this view controller right here, a table view controller, but we're not going to play with UI table views today, so I'm just going to delete this and show you how to do it manually, which is not bad, I promise. So this little arrow over here signifies the first view controller that is loaded into memory when your app loads. We want this navigation controller to load first, so we're going to take this arrow and drag it over to the navigation controller. That's great, but then our view controller that we want to edit is just dangling there. That doesn't have anything. So we're going to control-click over to the view controller and have the root view controller relationship segue, which then gives us the little title bar at the top. Cool. Now, in my app, I had buttons to signify the people that I was going to have color information for. So let's go down here and find a round rect button, add it to the top of the screen. And let's say my best friend today is John Renner.
Oh, no love over here.
No love there at all, Michael. I'm going to add another view controller. This view controller is the view controller I'm going to use to actually see John Renner's favorite color. And I'm going to click and drag from this, my start view controller over to this view controller and have a push segue. And that'll give me my nice little title bar up here. I can double click on the title bar, by the way, in the center of it to edit the title label. So I'm going to call this Friends. I'm going to put this John Renner. Okay. So I want to have a picture of John Renner in my app. So I'm going to go scroll down until I find an image view. And I'm going to drag the image view onto here. Xcode assumes that I want the entire screen to be a view, but an image. But that's not exactly true, so I'm going to not put it there all the way and resize it a little bit. I feel like that's a good enough image. Size. I can go over here, and here in the properties for the image view and the attributes, it gives me the option to put in the image I want. So I'm going to go over to my desktop and open up my images folder and find an awesome picture of John Renner and drag it over to Xcode if it wants me to.
You can also just add files.
No, I'm going to do it this way. Oh wait, that's not what I wanted to do, sorry. Okay, I'm going to, instead of clicking and dragging it because Mission Control doesn't like me today, I'm just going to add files from somewhere. Add files, there you go.
Do this down here with this little plus button too. It'll give you the same options.
Desktop, images. And you can press the space bar to see the quick look. So here are all my friends. And there's John Renner. So I'm going to select that one. You're going to want to click Copy Items into Destinations Group folder, if needed. If this is already in a subdirectory of your projects folder, it won't copy it, and everything will be fine. But if it's not, it'll copy it in for you. I highly recommend this so that you don't have your project files everywhere. I'm just going to name this John. Now I can go back to my storyboard, and in attributes I'm going to type in John's name. .jpg is the file name. And there we go. There's a picture of John. But he's stretched out because my UI image view was kind of square. I want it to have the aspect ratio that the image came with. So, somewhere over here, forget where, in the mode for the view, right now it has scale to fill. I want aspect fill. Or I want aspect fit, depending on how I want it to be. I feel like fill today. So I get the nice centered image of this awesome thumbs up. Now I'm going to add some UI labels here. Going to make this nice lengthy label over here. I don't want that to be left aligned. I want it to be right aligned. So I go over to the attributes. Oh, I was selecting the constraint. Click on the label, go over to the attributes, and I change the alignment to be right aligned. Cool. And I believe his favorite color is orange, right? He's in the room, but he doesn't care if I'm wrong, so I might be right.
That is not orange.
That is not how you spell it. Whatever. Cool. So I'm going to run this awesome app now. And all in Storyboard. Oh, I understand now. We never stopped this app. There we go. All in Storyboard, I just created a fully static and not very aligned program. But if I have more than one friend, this is going to get really annoying to have to make all of those different pages statically. So I'm going to change first the size of this image. And I'm going to change this so that it's dynamic. So this view controller over here is already linked up with my default view controller .h&m files because it's the default one that's provided by Xcode and I didn't change anything. If I click over here and look at this little ID card, I can find out that the class it goes with is view controller, which is the view controller Xcode provided me. Over here, this is the my new view controller has the default UI view controller instance. So I'm going to make my own so I can edit some things. I'm going to go into File, Objective-C class, and we're going to be a subclass of UI view controller. I'm going to be friend view controller. Save it there, add it to the target. Cool, I now have a second view controller. But I'm going to go back to the first one real quick. In my main storyboard, I have this button. And I have it right now connected to a Segue. I think it's... Oh yeah, this Segue is attached to this button. So I'm going to delete the Segue, because I don't want Storyboard to have that Segue happen automatically. I want to tell this button to call a method to do an action that I will control what it does afterwards. So I control click from the button over to the header file of view controller, select action, and say button press. Cool. The sender for this is going to be the UIButton instance that invokes the method. And I'm happy with that. I can go back to my view controller over here, and I see my new method. I'm going to say a UI, all of the typos. Yep. And I'm going to take the text out of the button label. Use string. Text, title label, dot text. Okay, so now that I have that information, I'm going to provoke a segue. So self, because it's a method that I call on the view controller, and that's the method that I'm in a method of view controller, so I can call self. Perform segue with identifier. And I forgot to set the identifier, so I go back to the storyboard, I click on the segue, and I'll set this up. So segue is I spelled that right? Yep. Cool. And I'm going to have the sender be the name of the button. It's just convenient for me to do that. Cool. Now I'm going to implement the prepare for segue method like we all did before. I know that this segue is going to end up resulting in an instance of my friend view controller. So I'm going to import friend view controller.h into this view controller's implementation so I can use it. And I'm going to assign the destination view controller to a variable of type friend view controller. Because Segue knows that its destination view controller is at least a view controller instance, I do have to cast it to my friend view controller since it's not a type ID. So Segue destination view controller. Cool. Now the destination view controller, but I don't have anything to really do with it yet. My storyboard, I didn't hook any of this nice stuff up to my destination view controller, to my friend view controller. So I'm going to do that now. Select the view controller, and I didn't set it to be an instance of my friend view controller. So I go over to the ID card, and in the class area I type friend, and it already knows I have a friend view controller. Cool. So I control drag my image view, the name, and the color label. Okay. This isn't good enough. These are only the labels, and I need someplace in my view controller to place the data that's going to be put in these labels when the view controller loads. So I'm going to make my own properties in addition to these properties that Interface Builder gives me. I'm going to make a name string, a color string, and a UI image. Cool. Now I can go over to my view controller, and set the destination properties, and set those the properties that I just created to the variables that to the values that I know of. So s dot image will equal UI image name, equals the name, and in my friend view controller, I'm going to, within the view did load, set the values of to the view objects, so that the view can have them and display them. And since I'm doing this in view did load, it will then actually display them. So self.image view dot image equals self.image self dot name label dot text equals self dot name and self dot color label dot text equals self dot self dot color. Sorry. While I'm here, I want to also make sure that into Storyboard, the title on this navigation bar also changes to the appropriate name. So in front view controller, I'm going to do self.navigationItem title, which is an NS string, is equal to self dot. And I think this should run. Does the exact same thing as before. If you could look closely, you can see the text is there. Let me go fix that in the Storyboard real quick. See if that works. Is that low enough? I really don't want to play with the... That made it higher. Okay. I have better. Let's change the color of these labels so that they're light gray. So that worst case scenario, it does what I want it to do and puts it on a white background. Best case scenario, you can see some of it a little bit. There you go. I just don't want to play with the constraints right now. Cool. So that works, and I'll prove to you it's dynamic by, in my view controller, changing John's favorite color from orange to purple.
No.
And changing his name in the button from John Renner to
I don't like purple.
Michael Timbrook. Michael Timbrook, and his favorite color is purple. There's one thing I want to show you guys real quick, and that is a good practice. In my custom view controller, I made some strong properties. These properties will be retained by the object, and it is good practice to release them when the object is being deallocated. So I'm going to override dealloc real quick. And do equals nil. Color equals nil. And image image equals. Automatic reference counting will know to release these objects when they're assigned to nil. And that's exactly what will happen. Our program will run exactly the same, except now there's less of a chance of having a memory leak. And because the name of the person is from the button, we can use this to make this a little bit more in-depth. And let's say I want my other good friend Abigail to be in here. Adding to the same function method. Is equal to string. By the way, to indent everything, it's Apple right square bracket. Command right square bracket.
You can do the same thing and get rid of an indent too.
Let's copy this. Don't have Abigail's picture in here yet. Abigail's favorite color was jade. Add her picture. There we go. And there we have it. You can't really see it too well, but that does say Abigail and it does say Jade. And that is how you can reuse the same view controller and use UI navigation view controllers to your advantage to do some awesome stuff and keep track of your friends' favorite colors in a semi-static, semi-dynamic manner. Okay. Any questions with that? With the entire presentation? Yes.
So, do we need segues to go to view controllers in order to access them?
No, you do not always need a segue. You can programmatically instantiate a view controller and set that as the current view controller, which is pretty much what a segue does, but a segue does it for you. So it's sometimes nice to have the segue in Storyboard there, ready for you to call. But if you ever need to call on a different view controller, you can instantiate it and pull it out of a Storyboard and instantiate it and set it as the current view controller.
And it's similar with using view controllers that are in Storyboard. You get a Storyboard ID, and you can access that in code the same way, very similar way that you access segues.
Any other questions? No. Okay, so now you can use Xcode, and now you can make a nice, simple iOS app with Storyboard, and you can do a little bit more than a very simple iOS app. You now have the tools to continue on and make cool applications and some of the ability to research what things do. So go forth and make some apps, learn how to use the frameworks and APIs, and we will have another presentation tomorrow on more specific APIs and how you can use them to make even more complicated apps, like things with table views or things with collection views, a new feature in iOS 6.
And things with core data.
And things with core data. All that and more we will show you how to do in tomorrow's presentation. Okay, thanks.